Hi, good evening, and welcome to Open Mic. This is our third of four series that we planned for you. Tonight, with my host, Tanis, we'll be discussing imagination. Just a quick recap for those who don't know me. My name is Ramsey Chiti. I'm a psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual coach. I'll let my co host introduce herself. Tanis.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here today. I'm Tanis Coughlin of the Twila Lifestyle Community and the Twila Lifestyle Academy, and I am a Reiki Master, Crystal Master, Celtic Shamanic High Priestess. So I do energy healing and readings and whatnot, and I'm also a Galactic Ambassador. So I'm really
Awesome.
excited to be here.
We're excited about that. This is something new that just happened, something like this week or last week.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fun journey. Yeah.
I'm sure it will.
The Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, and so I'm now an ambassador. So it'll be fun. Mm,
Awesome. Good news.
yeah.
So, imagination. I thought tonight will be an imaginative night whereby we actually surf through the crazy mind of imagination and see how it links us between worlds and what is it? What does it do? And do we really actually need imagination? I'm not sure. Let's just jump into the topic and see what gets us there. Let's see.
So what is imagination?
What is imagination? Imagination is it's a faculty whereby the mind uses in order to come up with stuff. Nothing in this world came out on its own. We had to imagine it first,
Right.
and then from the imagination it goes out. So basically it's a collection of energies
Hmm.
that we put into something for it to manifest into this world. That's how I can how can describe imagination.
Okay. So if you use your imagination, are you always using it to manifest?
Am I sorry?
Are, if we use our imagination, are we always using it to manifest?
um, we can use yes. You call me off guard there.
It's a bit of a trick question, guys, because you know when we're using our when we're using our imagination, we're visualizing. When we visualize, we are creating. We are creator beings. So as we visualize, we do create. So even those imaginative thoughts, we'll say, are being created in a different dimension. So yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a bit.
it's we do create the images, we do create the pictures, but then we have to put a lot of energy into it for us to push it out of our creative little bubble into the outside world.
Okay.
Because imagination on its own doesn't really manifest into this world. Imagination is just a bunch of pictures that we come up with, and if we don't do anything with it, it just like fades away like thought.
Mhm. Does it though?
It when
Are
I
you
say it fades
creating?
away, it does not disappear. It just because energy is never created or destroyed. It's there. That's what Einstein said. So it just changes. So what happens is that it moves into, let's say, it moves with a high intensity at the beginning. We're imagining. Then we let it go. It just goes down into intensity and moves away and sits somewhere in the background for it to, for the right time for it to come out, basically.
It percolates.
Yes.
So
You
basically,
know,
when we imagine something, we have to actually focus on it, right, in order to manifest. We're not just like thinking about something and letting it happen and it happens. We really do have to add energy to it. I've also heard. I was watching something the other day, and it was about really feeling what it is that you want to manifest. So if you're really in that moment and you're really feeling all of it, and really wanting it, you're putting a lot of energy into that. I think really, for the most part, people don't realize like how powerful we are in that sort of space, right? Because your
We're
thoughts are energy.
Yes, we're extremely powerful. It's funny you mentioned that. Napoleon Hill in 1937, he wrote a book, Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the chapters he dedicated to imaginations. And one of the phrases that caught my eye and it got stuck in my head is that whatever the mind can conceive and believe, which is all these emotions that comes out with it can achieve. So we need that fire in order to push it out, and that fire comes in a form of feelings, and that's the driver of the whole imagination portion of it.
Yeah, for sure. When we're manifesting, we have to believe it.
Yeah, and if you recall the first time we worked together, and it's funny, so I don't know if you remember, you said read me, and I said okay, let me try, and I was like, you know, rookie back then. I was like focusing. What am I looking at? And I saw, I believe it was on the right side or the left side. I can't remember exactly where it is. A cube.
Mm-hmm.
It was a box.
Mm-hmm. It was the right side. I
The
remember.
right side. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So I saw a box that you put in your field, in your energy field.
Yep.
I couldn't figure out what that box was. You want to tell us about that box? And then we'll dive into how you created it into your field and what is it used for.
Okay. So that's like my sanctuary. So it's kind of like your consciousness is in your body, and you can kind of pull your consciousness out and put it. So for me, it's here in a little box, and in that box, I've really created like a whole sanctuary, is what I call it. Right? It's a
Mhm.
place for me to meet with the guides and have, because we need a bit of a physical type construct in our brain in order to conceptualize speaking with guides, and how do we meet them, and we have to picture our higher self as something, and how do we picture that in a place that's got what we need for our spiritual growth, and that the guides can come in and manifest in whatever form they need to manifest to make us comfortable, and all of that stuff, and still have some safety parameters around where our consciousness is. Because when we're first starting out, right, the astral travel thing is a little bit like, it just
Scary.
seems huge, right? Because you've got all this, it's space. So it kind of gives you a bit of a container, we'll
Mm.
say, to put your consciousness in, or to put your imagination in.
Yeah.
Gives you that kind of a construct. So for me, it started out when I first started my journey. I took a channeling class, and this is where this started for me. And I went into my sanctuary, and the first time I went in there, it was just like a very small room, like an old study with a whole bunch of books and everything around, and one little wingback chair. As my journey went on, I found that there was more things in there. As I would go back, I'd be like, oh, there's a fireplace now. Oh, look at that. Oh, and now I have like this huge house that's like a construct in my imagination the um for my spiritual journey, right? So
Yeah.
I just go to, and it's got different rooms or containers that I use to help visualize myself doing things. Um, and that's really because of our brain needing that, right? It's
Yes.
it's it's a container for us to have that construct, because otherwise it's overwhelming to think that we can go to any dimension anywhere, and make a difference and do stuff. And when we first start out, that's not an easy thing. We need to have that in order to feel safe in doing it,
Yeah.
and be safe. There's safety parameters in that as well, in
Yeah.
doing.
And our mind requires that. Otherwise, it doesn't go. It doesn't like surprises or openness to a point where you don't know where you stand or where you're going, where you're coming. So that little box kind of helps us feel safe in a contained environment. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, here's another question, because one of the things that I was reading about South American shamans is that what we call the energy field, they call it the bubble.
Okay. Mhm.
They call it the bubble. It's the same thing, but it's a different terms. And one of their meditation techniques is you have to clean your bubble.
Okay.
Basically, what we do in order to get the energy from the universe, get it through the crown chakra, bring it in, clean up everything, relax the body, bring it down to the earth, and so on. And you have this reciprocation between the top and the bottom, and through you and the cleansing point. One of the main things is that if your bubble is not clean, how are you going to put things in there? How are you going to manifest? Because it's like a multi-step process in order for an idea, an image, and a picture to move from one's head into the physical world. So the bridge that takes us from the imagination into the real world goes through our bubble
Mhm.
or our field. So one of the main thing is cleaning up your bubble so that you will have the space to build your sanctuary, or to build the wheel, the invention of the wheel. It starts over there. But if that's cluttered, there's no space to put things in there, and gets like kind of squashed because
Mhm.
there are other priorities in there. I thought it was interesting, the image of this whole thing, how it works, and I'll bring it to you to see how, what's your thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's when we look at energy healing and our chakra system and how all of that works, we have energy really that's coming up and around and in, right, through the crown chakra, and then it
Yeah.
comes down the crown chakra and out the root chakra, and it's like what do they call it? A torus? Is that what it's called? So it's like energy, and it is like a bubble. It's
Yeah.
like a whole energy bubble that comes up and around and goes in through the torus, and it just circulates, right? And so when that bubble isn't circulating properly and we've got dense pockets of energy, that's where you feel that feeling like you're closed in and things aren't going to flow the way they're supposed to or the way you would love them to. And so clearing out that bubble or the torus, the energy torus around us, is kind of how we can make space for new stuff to come in, which is really what you have to do, right? It's you have
Yes.
to make space, or you transmute the energy to a different form of energy
Hmm.
to allow you to bring in different qualities of energy that you might need. So it's interesting that there was one thing that came to mind while you were talking about the process of bringing stuff from your mind down. So one of the practices that I do is I picture ground, like earth. So this is about the elements, the four elements. You picture earth like from the knees down into the earth. Then you picture water from the knees up to the waist. Then you picture air from your waist up to your shoulders. And from your shoulders up to about a foot above your head is fire.
Yeah.
And so one of the ways we can work with our imagination too is by looking at those elements, because the spark of an idea is fire. We bring it down through the air, where we're kind of like giving it some thought. We're rolling around the idea in our mind, right? It's kind of floating around. Then we get into the planning, where we try to decide what the flow is going to be to bring that idea down into manifesting. And then we bring it to the earth, the 3D, the earth part of that process. And so when we think about manifesting or ideas, or even like business planning, bringing things through that sort of cycle helps you to bring it from that sanctuary, for instance,
Yeah.
down to the earth. So one of the other things that we did in the sanctuary stuff was that we would get, they called it gifts. So we would get gifts from the guides. Okay. And so we might ask for a gift from your higher self,
Yeah.
and they give you a key, for instance, and it might have something, it might be a key to something specific. in which case it would look like something specific. The key would look like something specific. Now, sometimes it looks like a key. Sometimes it's like a key that has something on the end of it, or whatever you're manifesting for yourself in your sanctuary, right?
Yeah.
When we have that, then we put it on our altar in our sanctuary. So my altar grew to have my sanctuary grew to have like an altar space in it. And so when I had that altar space, I was able to put those gifts from spirit onto that altar. And then the trick was to outpicture them. So to take what you saw there and then look in the 3D when I came back and find that or something similar and put it on my altar in my space, in the physical space. So, for instance, keys were a big thing for me. And so I have these on my altar.
Oh, wow.
Because they actually represent aspects of self for me. They represent the different elements that we could work with. There's all sorts of different things that these mean for me. So I have those on my altar. I have this one as well, which you'll notice, see, it has a heart there.
Yeah.
The key to love.
Oh, right. Beautiful.
And so for me, I have those on I have my altar right here. So I have those on my altar because it's a way for me to outpicture stuff, which is like taking it from the imagination and bringing it into the 3D. So it's kind of a spiritual, symbolic way of how we manifest and how we use our imagination to create in that way.
I love the way you brought it up from a fire, wind, air, fire, air, water, and earth, and how it flows through the elements in order to be solidified in the earth as a seed for it to flourish with time. That was a beautiful imagery of this whole process.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So to get, which is, we're still on a part, we're sitting in our bubble and this bubble that goes around like that, we want to clean it. Mm-hmm. We try, okay, I'll talk about myself. I tried multiple ways, which is one of them is forgive and love and all of these things.
Mm-hmm. Which is all important.
Pardon?
That's all very important in the process.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But I found, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners will also can agree with me on certain parts, is that the mind plays the tricks on us, whereby we believe we achieved, but as a process of masking the pain without clearing our bubble. Mm-hmm. You know, and I remember you and I, we worked together for a while and helped me out in actually achieving that. And I thought maybe we can touch on it because everyone needs to, nobody needs to do anything, but whenever someone...
We invite you to.
Yeah, you're invited to do it, is to feel, to free yourself, basically, from the baggage that we carry along. And this way we don't have to carry a burden along our path, but just drop it behind and continue walking. Mm-hmm. And I would like to mention one more thing, is that although I worked a lot on myself and on the healing and forgiving and loving processes, and I thought I was there. But then something happens. It's like there's an earthquake and there's a crack in the earth, and then this little seedling comes up, okay, and says, here I am, you haven't touched me yet. And then it wreaks havoc with the way you're doing things, because you believe you're clear and ready to move forward, when this thing starts pulling you backward without you realizing it. And I thought maybe we can touch on this subject, and especially the Ho'oponopono portion of it, because not only is it I'm not gonna go into it. Let's go. I'll give you I'll give you the
Okay,
mic.
go ahead.
It's an open mic we're supposed to share. So
That's okay. Yeah,
no, it's all good. It's all good.
I think I'd like to make the distinction here between removing blockages in your energy field and the healing journey or the spiritual journey. Because the healing journey, spiritual journey, I kind of look at those as very similar. They're very much about self-discovery. So that is quite different from clearing the field. However, as you clear your field, you discover stuff about yourself. And as you discover stuff about yourself, you clear the field. So there is, it's a symbiotic relationship between those two, but they're not quite the same frequency, energy between them. And so I think that when we clear the field, I see that as being a little bit more temporary. You know, like we walk through life and we pick up things and they get caught in our field, and how do we kind of release what's there? And it's kind of like peeling the onion. So when we clear the field, we're peeling the onion. We peel a layer of the onion, but there's still more, right? We're very multi-dimensional beings. So we could clear the 3D stuff. We still have like all the other Ds to go to, all the other dimensions, because we got stuff in all of those that we got to take care of, right? And this whole journey that we're on the earth, it's all about that. It's all about us learning. They call it the great work. It's that self-discovery, know thyself is what they talk about it being, that great journey, that great work. Because when you know yourself, you can then love yourself. When you can love yourself, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is about yourself, and accept that that's just you. And it changes how you go through the world. Because you don't have to look for approval, right? Because many of us are brought up looking for approval, and none of us are perfect in any of this. And, you know, even as healers, sure, we've done some work, but we're never done. If you're still here, if you're listening to this broadcast and you're here, you're not done your work, because the work is the learning, and we're here to learn, right? So we're all on a learning path being here. That's why we're here. It's our big life purpose, really, is to learn. So having said that, clearing the field is what we were talking about. So clearing the field, if we take away the first couple of layers, you know, we can do that with energy healing and all of that, but then there is a responsibility for the person to do their work, right? We just facilitate healing as healers. We don't actually like go in and do lasting change. Do you know what I mean? We don't fix people. We facilitate people getting to know themselves. We facilitate that learning so that they can do the work. Okay. Just as you and I had people facilitate for us, and we've done it for each other. Right. So it's that facilitator role that we have as healers. So healers is a bit of a misnomer, but it's the common word. So spiritual guide is kind of a nice way of putting it in terms of that. Anyway, so with my clients, anyways, what I do is I teach them, I give them tools. A lot of my healing sessions are about learning. So, you know, we'll talk about different ways that they can do stuff on their own. And one of them is the Ho'oponopono. So if we want to talk about that, that is a really powerful tool for people to use. And it's so simple. I mean, I remember when I first started doing all my work, and it was like, people would say to me, well, just forgive him, you know, just forgive him. And I'm like,
doesn't work.
How do I do that exactly? Like, what does that mean? What does that feel like? Because I'm a feeler. So what does that feel like? And so I started really kind of, basically what I do is I started with a really bizarre sort of thing. So let's talk about the Ho'oponopono first, and then I'll share that story. So the Ho'oponopono is basically 4 phrases. It is, and they are all slightly different. I'm going to use the one that I use, but people use different ones. And it's because there's different frequencies. The original is very effective. And so the original is, I believe, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So I use a slightly different one, especially when I start with people early on, because there is a frequency difference between jumping from please forgive me, because that is of unconditional love. So that unconditional love vibration is very high. Sometimes we're not ready to jump to that high vibration when we start the work. So I often will start people on a different vibration of those four phrases. Okay. So I'll often do, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I love you, and thank you. So on to the story. So I use this a lot with my clients, and I'll tell you the legend first. So there is a legend about this. The Ho'oponopono is from the Huna tradition, which is a Hawaiian healing tradition. One of the legends that I like that is written in the book about it. There is a book out about that. I can't remember the exact name, but there is a book that's written about the Ho'oponopono. And in that, they talk about a psychiatrist that was hired to do work in a hospital for the criminally insane. Needless to say, he was a little bit worried about going out on the floor, a little bit worried about his own safety. And he was a Huna practitioner. And so he decided he would try the Ho'oponopono as a technique. Because what the Ho'oponopono does is it helps to clear that field, but it goes deep as you go. So what he did was he would take out an inmate's file, put it on his desk, and focus on it. And he would start to repeat the Ho'oponopono. So he would do this every day. And within a year, they had to close the hospital because all but 5 were rehabilitated in that hospital because of the Ho'oponopono. Sorry, just fixing some lighting issues going on. So the guides play with the lights, and then I get all like, oh, I can't, that's not right. So that's one of the legends of it. So for myself, the first time I used it, and I was really totally impressed with how it worked. So I was actually, this is kind of a good story about past lives too. So I was early on my journey, and I didn't know what I was doing exactly. I just thought I'll sit down and meditate, right? And so I grabbed celestite in my left hand and do meteorite in my right hand. What I did not know by doing that, because I just intuitively picked them up, was celestite is for angelic assistance. Meteorite was past lives. Your left hand is about asking or receiving. Your right hand is about releasing. So what I didn't realize that I was asking for angelic assistance to release past lives. I sit down, I start meditating. Next thing I know, I have this horrible vision in my head about a past life. I don't want to get into too much detail because we're a family show and all. But it wasn't very nice. And it involved a person. And so when I came out, I was in tears because it was almost like I relived the whole thing because, there is no time and space.
Yeah.
So it was like I went back in time, and it was a past life. So we're talking like medieval times here. So we're going way back, right? So the guy that was involved, his face was like right here in my mind, and I couldn't get rid of it. And I had just learned the Ho'oponopono, and I started saying it. And all of a sudden, the face disappeared. And then it maybe came back once or twice because, like we said, we're onions, right? We got to clear that energy. Yeah. So it maybe came back once or twice, and then I would do it again, and it would clear. So the interesting thing about it is that I had always thought I was hiding something from myself. You think you've blocked something from your memory. I thought that was the case. After this thing, and I had cleared everything with the Ho'oponopono, I didn't feel that way anymore. So it was past life information that was blocking me in this life.
Yeah. It's something you carried in your field. from a previous life, which is happening at the same time since there's no time and space.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, wrap your head around that, guys, because
Yeah.
that is something that it took me a long time to figure out. There is no time and space. Everything's happening now. We are doing this now, and it's happening at the same time. How does that work? It's that's what we mean when we talk about our human brain not really being able to conceptualize things.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to put in constructs like the sanctuary thing to help us to function in those multidimensional places. And
Yeah,
we talked a
absolutely.
little bit about the multi-dimension stuff last week. So if you want to look at last week's, you'll get more information on that stuff. But
One of the things I just want to mention, because I've gotten to speak to a lot of people and they believe it's an onion, and you mentioned the term onion, and they believe that life is about peeling it and cleaning it and cleaning it. But what happens in the process is that we lose sight of life, and all we're focusing on is the bloody onion. Onion rings are good, but don't focus on the onion. Just let it go.
yes,
As things rise, which is like the event that happened to me a couple of weeks ago, just mentioned, is like it's like there was an earth-shattering earthquake that it opened up, and this thing just came out of the earth. I didn't go look for it; it just happened. So as it's happening, of course, I was disoriented, not sure what's happening and why things are not working, and the guys are not where to be found, and nobody's talking to me. And I go, okay, fine. That's it. I lost all my abilities. My powers are gone. I can't even meditate. For heaven's sake, I couldn't sit for 5 minutes. Not that I can sit usually, but for those of you who can't meditate, listen to me. It is hard. But once certain events or memories or stuff that rise from the ashes, that's when we have to deal with them.
yeah,
And we have to deal with them the minute we realize that there's something not moving properly. Because once energy starts to change frequency, your whole body starts to change, your mind changes. And if you're aware, if you're mindful with everything that you do on a daily basis, and that's another way to meditate, it's through mindfulness. If you are mindful, you start to feel the change in frequencies around you. Even vision will change, and also people around you. You'll get irritated from everybody around because you're starting to shift into something that is actually irritating you. So you become irritable easily. And once that happens, just go inside, figure it out, and start working on forgiveness. And one of the keys, I think, I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not, but the forgiveness is you have to forgive yourself,
yeah,
because everything is within you. It has nothing to do with anybody outside. It has nothing to do with the neighbors, with the world, with the politics, with COVID. It has nothing to do with anything. It all resides within us. It is what we create, we see.
yeah.
So clearing and forgiving, it comes to us first. Once we shine that light on our dark sides and accept that dark side, then light will come out from within us to the world.
Yes, very much so. Mm-hmm.
So this is one point I don't want everybody to go look for an onion all the time.
I like the onion analogy because oftentimes clearing for me involves a lot of tears. So,
That too.
because the other piece about that is as you go through stuff will come up for you and you're like, well, how do I deal with this? How do I clear this? And really it's about mindfully thinking about what you're feeling. So it's like something comes up for you and you're like, okay, what am I feeling? I'm feeling off. Like oftentimes we just feel off at first. And so it's like, okay, I need to what am I feeling? Right? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm feeling, there's sad or there's fear or there's one of those denser emotions. Okay. And then you try to figure out what it is. You don't have to, though. That's the thing. If you don't know, allow yourself to feel the emotion and just let it move through you, because it's energy, right? Emotions are all about energy, and energy needs to flow. So when we stop our emotions and we block them, and because we've been told by society that, emotions are bad and you shouldn't feel them, you're not supposed to cry, all of those kind of catchphrases that we all have learned over the years, that we're all in the process of unlearning. As you go through that, you realize that you just have to let it pass. You have to experience it, because it's like honoring the emotion, right?
Absolutely.
You honor the emotion, you honor the experience that created that emotion for you, and then you allow the energy to pass.
Yeah.
Right. And if we actually taught our kids how to do that at a young age, think of how much happier they'd be.
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping for future generations that we can start teaching that kind of thing, and that emotion is energy. Because really, when you're looking at energy and it's intense, usually that real intense stuff, when you're like really triggered, is because we didn't deal with something at the time, right? I remember, so this is kind of an interesting personal note. So I used to, being in management, I had to like push all my emotions down, and, I couldn't cry in the office and all of that stuff. And then I would get home, and something small would trigger me. And all of a sudden I would start to cry, and I would cry so hard that I would end up with little burst blood vessels
Oh,
under
yeah.
my eyes, because I did not allow the emotion. And then when I finally did, it was like out my eyes. So, when you can allow it to happen naturally, which is what I strive to do now. It's not always practical. Like, there are times when we have to be a little bit more, but what I do try to do now is I try to say, okay, I'm really feeling upset right now. I can't right now. I'm going to really put some time aside later
Yeah.
to feel into that and allow that to happen. And I don't get that anymore.
Mm.
When I do it, it's just not like that. Even when I do heavy clearing work, I don't find that it's the same. So
It's very important to pull back and adjust. See, it's funny because I think has been a year now since that incident happened. Also at work, where one word, and it ended up with me taking it out on the person on a call in front of everybody, and ended the call and walked away. But within 10-15 minutes, I go, okay, yeah, everything came out, all that bottled up emotions just came out. It's like a broken dam,
yeah,
and actually wiped everything along its path. And when that happened, there was nothing left in the in the reservoir. I
yeah,
was like, oh, why did I do that? So I actually picked up the phone and called everyone on the phone that was on the call, and apologized one by one, including the person that I lashed out on. He tried to be very diplomatic and says, "Hey, there's nothing, and things do happen." And I go, "No, things do not happen. We create this event. I created it. It had nothing to do with you. I created it. There were small little things that were happening from before. Instead of dealing with them, I held them. I held them in a bottle. It was like a Coca-Cola bottle, and
mm,
kept on shaking it. And then when it really shook hard, the pressure was so strong that the cap couldn't take it, and it just exploded. And that's exactly what happens. So dealing with it, pulling back, dealing with the emotion, let it flow. Nothing goes away. It just flows. So you send it to the earth, it
yeah,
gets transmuted into something beautiful there, and then you feel that release. And then you'll be able to rationalize what is happening and be able to deal with the situation on its own.
that's right. Yeah, because how many times do we do that? I mean, and kudos to you for doing that. That certainly speaks to the kind of guy you are, right? Because not everybody will do that. Often people will, like, they'll just hide and they'll be like, I'm ashamed, and they feel that shame, which just adds to their own bucket of guck, right? Instead of like going out there and actually dealing with it and feeling empowered to do that. And that's what
Yeah.
you did. So kudos to you for doing that. Not an easy feat, right? We all know
No,
that that's
not at
really
all.
against our kind of, it doesn't feel safe right away until we start to practice that stuff regularly. Um, the Yeah, so that, and how many times have we done that? I mean, I I I invite all of you that are listening to think about that. How many times have you done that? Those times of
Yeah.
stress, probably a lot more too. When we're going through huge life changes, or you're in a new job, or maybe you're having a separation, or going through some divorce, or some big trauma that's happened. Those are stressful times. And oftentimes, especially when we're grieving, right, we tend to push that grief down because there's so many other things to do. If it's somebody close to you, you're pushing it down because you have to do all the arrangements, and you have to get through the day. And so I invite you all, if you're going through that kind of thing, please just allow yourself that time in the grieving process along the way. Because I can't even tell you how many clients have come to me like a year down the road, and all of a sudden their grief has crept up again because they didn't actually give it the time at the
Yeah.
time. And they
Yeah.
acknowledged that. They were like, I just didn't have time to do it. So, and we do have to that's part of us trying, like, part of our journey is to empower ourselves to do the things that are good for us. And we're not always good at doing that. But definitely give your emotions that space to happen. Acknowledge what you're feeling. We try to be brave sometimes. Like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay. Right? Yeah.
That's funny because I can speak for myself from experience. When my grandmother passed away, it was like, oh, okay, she lived a happy life. She died at 90 plus, and everything is happy. Okay, get the cake out and let's celebrate her life. But never got a chance to actually feel that trauma because it was a shock. Also, I didn't have time to feel that trauma, and I put it on the side. It sat on the side. A couple of years later, she passed away in England, and we went to England to visit. The minute I landed, I put my foot on the ground in London. I became violently ill. Within half an hour, we went to a restaurant to have dinner. Uh, when I walked in, I go, I don't feel right, and I ran to the washroom. I started throwing up, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I had to sit back. It took 2 days. I was like 24 hours. I was knocked off, high fever. It was really bad. And then I realized what was happening, and so I called on my grandmother and I apologized for not being there when she was, having her issues at the end, and I had to grieve that, get it out. And when that went out, then my body came back to normality, and we went back enjoying the London town. So yes,
Mhm.
holding back actually sits in the field and inhibits the growth of any imaginative ideas or something for us to grow, because there's so many things that are sitting on the side. It's like a pressure cooker.
Mhm.
Actually, if you look at your field, it becomes a pressure cooker with all the stuff that we carry around, and we don't realize that they are there.
Yeah.
Our little onion, and somebody said onion is good.
Yeah.
Uh,
We have a question too, actually. So
yeah,
hi. Um, she says, so the meditation the doctor did at the psych ward healed the patients, or did it clear energy emotions to give the doctor the calmness to understand the person? No, we are all connected. So the concept behind that is that when we heal ourselves, we heal us, we heal others. So what he was doing was focusing on healing himself And in turn, because there is a connection, he healed them as well. So emotions, and you said clear the energy, or did it give the doctor the calmness to understand the person? Well, he understood the people at an energetic level, and the calmness that he brought, and basically he gave them a beautiful gift, right? When you have people who have done bad things, they've just made a bad mistake, right? They really made a bad choice. And these guys were really making bad choices. But our penal system, we tend to, it's supposed to be about rehabilitation, because rehabilitation and justice, the original word justice, is about learning. So learning our lesson, right? That was originally what this was supposed to be based on. And so that's basically what it is, right? He helped their energy to learn the lesson and gave them that forgiveness, because inside each of us, no matter what we've done in our lifetime, there is that divine spark. We all start with that divine spark. And then it comes down to free will and some of our soul contracts that we have. And we just also, as a note, like, we all we have to have lives where we've been bad people and good people. Because the lessons are, you can't learn the lessons of being a bad person, being a good person. You have to learn what it's like to do that. So we have all had past lives, or if we haven't, we will, right? If you're a newer soul, where we've been not good people. We've had lifetimes where we've killed people. We've had lifetimes where I have, and I have to heal that for myself because I carry it with me. In fact, I just did some of that today. And it's not a reflection of who you are now, because it's about the lesson that you learn in the time. So your soul has to learn the lesson. It's not about our brain learning the lesson. It's about our soul learning the lesson. Once our soul has learned that lesson, we can move on. If we don't learn the lesson, then we simply keep repeating it until we do. So what the basis of that is it helped those guys to learn the lesson at a soul level. So we have another comment here. God is the greatest forgiver. We simply need to stay in our hearts, which is not always easy when we've had negative experiences. That's true. Yeah. And who are we to judge what's right or wrong in somebody else's behavior?
We can't. We shouldn't.
We don't know what anybody else has gone through, what their experiences are. It's not up to us to judge whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah, it's a very good point. One of those like my light bulb moments where it helped me to release anger and frustrations and whatever it was that I was holding on for such a long time, was putting myself in the shoe of other, to be able to understand where they were coming from when they said something, and where I was and how I perceived it from my point. And when you reframe this whole thing, and you're sitting in the shoes of the so-called aggressor, you'll have love and compassion for them. You'll understand that it wasn't them. It's not them. It's not.
It's not that soul. It's
Yeah.
not that inner spark.
No.
And oftentimes it's our brain that's making those decisions.
Absolutely.
Yes, there's a comment there. The negative patterns repeat until we learn the lesson, and every lesson has a blessing or gift behind it when we're open to it. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Negative things happen for us, not to us. So they happen for our lessons, for our soul growth.
Yeah.
They don't happen to us because they want us to be in victim mode. Right? I mean, I don't know whether you want to get into victim triangle talk tonight, but the victim triangle theory is, we always play one of three roles. We are always playing, and this isn't everybody all the time, but when we get into it's called the drama triangle, and we get into the drama triangle, and we play one of three roles. We play the victim, the villain or the hero. And when we play that, that becomes, you get stuck in that. And you can play all three roles all at the same time, right? So that's, that's something to watch out for in terms of your negative patterns. But we tend to fall into that drama triangle when we haven't learned the lesson, right? And when we repeat and we repeat. So part of the journey, that soul journey or the great work, is to get to know when you are in that, because we all fall into it from time to time. We all do. I think the learning in that is, how do you recognize it earlier in yourself so that you can say, oh dear, I'm playing that victim or that villain again, And an example, okay, you can play all three at the same time. So in one of my other jobs, I wanted to advocate for the CSRs. And so I was like advocating with management because I felt it was right and we needed this. So by advocating, I was playing the hero. The reason I was advocating was because I was playing victim and felt like we were not being treated well. Yes, he does need a pat on the back. Yeah.
Sorry, I choked on my tea.
He's just clearing his throat chakra. He's good.
Yeah.
And then I was playing the villain as well, because from management's perspective, I was being passionate, shall we say, about my cause. Okay. So when we get caught in that drama triangle, that's when we're repeating patterns often. We tend to do that because perception is everything too, right? When we have perception. So for instance, one sec, I always use this as a good example. So here you see a colored screen. My cell phone is a colored screen, or a black screen. Let's go with the black screen. Okay. That's what you see. That's not what I see. I see a beautiful wood with a tree on it. Same item, different perspective. So it's just like situations. See one side and you think that's the reality of it. That's all there is. That's the reality. But really it's not. You turn it around and there might be something totally different on the other side. So that's part of, working through some of the things. And then, when we do see things that way, because we all do, it's about that self-forgiveness. You talked about that earlier, about having that self-forgiveness when we have done stuff, because we're all going to make mistakes. We all make poor choices.
All the time.
Exactly.
It's like that, what do you call it? We're a coin.
Yeah.
So it depends how we flip during the day, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to be is aware, or be aware of what we're doing, be mindful of our actions, and especially what we're thinking.
Yeah.
Thought is what drives us on a daily basis. So if we're too busy, I used to have this. I used to sit in 2 hours traffic, and I'll have a whole movie, a couple of them, and they were never fun. They were all angry thoughts that go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and starts to consume. That when somebody cuts me, well, they're not cutting me. I'm stuck in traffic anyways. Where am I going to go? It's like the world ends. It literally ends, and that's where road rage comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So you're bottling up all these negative energies that you're creating. You're turning in your mind at a nonstop, that it just explodes and it sits in you. Yeah. So that's why mindfulness and being and understanding what goes on the second floor is really important. Stay in the moment and repeat positive mantras. Actually, positive mantras are really, really good. One of the things that helped me out was, and I got it from Ram Dass, and also Tanis uses it too. It's called Om Mani Padme Hum. Mm-hmm. And that mantra at the beginning, I used to repeat it all the time. The only music I would listen to is that mantra repeating. I found it on YouTube and it goes for 2 hours. So imagine, so I'm listening to this all the time so that I'm planting the seed of awareness of what goes on upstairs and try to cultivate that land into beautiful flowers instead of having it really filled with weeds. And that positive mantra helped me out. Like I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning for whatever reason. And I realized that what is repeating in my mind is that mantra all the time, all the time. I go, like, really? It's like 2 in the morning. Could you just be quiet?
Just turn it down
But
a little. I'm trying to sleep here. Yeah.
but really, those little steps, they're small, small steps that lead you to a big leap in moving yourself from one level into another. And I'm talking about leaps. I'm not talking about just changing one thing, peeling one level. It's multi-layered. And the more we do these things, the more we're focusing on clearing our mind, clearing ourselves, clearing our field, then we start to realize one, you start to feel other people. You don't have to be psychic. It's just you feel because your energy field is so clean that the energy field of another person will trigger you if that person is on a different frequency and their frequency is one of a low frequency. Even if it's just for an hour, they're really monks, but at that point in time during the day when they crossed your path, they were angry at something. I told they were thirsty and nobody was giving them water. I don't know, something. But you'll feel it. It's funny. You will feel it. And I'm not talking about psychic development. I'm just talking about being mindful of what happens around. And it's so clean that you can touch the people through your energy field and understand who they are, what they want, what their needs are, and how you can actually be of assistance, even if it's just pressing the button of an elevator for someone that has 4 or 5 bags on them. They can lift their hand and press the button, but just being there and mindful, that will bring something to that person for the day.
Mm-hmm. And the butterfly effect.
The
And
butterfly effect, yeah,
plays
absolutely.
a role, right?
Yeah.
One person smiles or one person does the elevator button. And that person goes to work, and instead of being angry and frustrated with the team, all of a sudden they're better. Right? And then the team feels better. They have a better day. They go home to their families and have that,
Yeah.
have a nice dinner. Then the families go out to their activities. And so it just spreads. That's what I mean by the butterfly effect. So,
Yeah, because if you're upset, you're in your head, and you're just like angry at a situation that took place, you're only radiating vibration, a lower level vibration that is going to affect the person that is standing right next to you waiting for the elevator.
mhm.
That's how bad it is. And we don't realize that even if we don't verbalize what is inside,
Yeah.
it radiates to the outside at an even stronger level than the word.
Mm-hmm. And those of us that are sensitive, we like, when somebody says something and it's said with that tone, you'll actually feel like I've had people say things and they don't even mean to be doing it. It just happens, right? They spit
Yeah.
something out because they're frustrated or whatever. And I actually feel it as a physical hit, almost like it's been thrown at me, And
Yeah.
that's the other piece of the teaching that is part of this journey is energy management. How do we manage our own energy so we don't do that to other people? And then how do we manage our energy so that we block that stuff from other people? So that we're not I don't like that word, but that we can transmute the energy as it comes through
Yes.
the field,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
As we do that and we have this transmutation of the energy, it allows us to feel more even keel, like more even emotions.
Yeah.
if we're able to do that, because we're in each other's energy field all the time. All the time. You're in the same house with somebody, you're in their energy field. You're going to feel that. If you're sensitive, you will feel it. Right? So, and that's why, when you're with, you'll find that your friends or the people that you hang out with the most that really get you and all of that, they're going to be a similar vibration to you, because like attracts like. So it doesn't matter if you're up here or, in the higher vibrational frequencies, or whether you're in the lower vibrational frequencies. Both people will be uncomfortable if it's like really extreme difference. And it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. So I don't want to put that out there. It's just different. So if we want it, maybe we should go frequency this way. So the lower frequency, higher frequency, as opposed to up and down. It kind of gives that, hierarchy feel. We don't want that. But the further they are apart, the harder it is to connect, right? To bridge that energy difference. So that's why we tend to feel most comfortable with people of a similar vibrational frequency. And that's why often on the journey we end up changing friends or changing relationships, changing jobs, because our frequency that we put out affects our life around us. And when we put out good stuff or we put out bad stuff, we're going to be getting that back, right? That's kind of where the concept of karma comes from, but it's really energetic.
Absolutely, yeah. Birds of feather flock together, period.
Yep.
That's it has nothing to do with good or bad. It's just they flock together.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up changing jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It's either we outgrow the I'm going to call it community, because that's what it is in a job. We outgrow them from an energy level. We vibrate at a different energy level, not higher, but at a different energy level. So we start to separate.
Yeah.
Our common denominator starts to fade as those energy gets stronger in opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
And then we end up, it's horrible over there. Nothing is good. Nobody's talking to me, and so on and so forth. And then we move into another place, hopefully landing in a pool where all the fish are swimming in the same direction. And I'll say, oh, yeah, this is much nicer. Until we start to, us or somebody else start to change within their energy field and start to move around and move away, and then they will change.
Yeah, I do want to mention here, like, we're also afraid of change, but change is a natural process. We're supposed to change. Because, some people will feel guilty about, they start doing their own work and their vibration changes, and then all of a sudden they're not with the same friends, and they're feeling guilty because they're the ones that have changed in that situation. But like, we're meant to change. We're meant to evolve. We're meant to learn. That's what we're here for. So really acknowledging that it's okay to change, right? It's okay to change. Because I know that I've had clients where that's the case. They feel guilty because they started this spiritual journey and they didn't want to stay stuck. And maybe I don't know, whoever they're living with, their spouse or their child or whatever, was not on the same path. And so it becomes more difficult for them.
Yeah.
And then they feel guilty because they've changed. The reality of it is we're all changing every day. We are never the same person twice. We're never the same person from day to day, because we learn something every day. Whether it's that we learn that we need to pick up the kids' Lego because we're going to step on it, whether it's that, we we definitely don't want to go that route to the grocery store. We want to go the other route. The little things are still learnings, right? There's reasons for those things to happen, and then we learn from them. So anytime we learn anything, it changes who we are. So please let's throw out that guilt and stuff related to our own personal development and change.
And also, when we change, we bring the change into our community.
Mm-hmm.
We start to radiate a new level of vibration that will eventually change others along the way.
That's right.
So it's not like we're going to change and go sit in a room on our own and hoping for the best that something happens in the other room. No, we radiate it. We radiate it, and the frequency will go everywhere. And slowly it balances out. Yeah. At one point in time, it's one's higher, one is lower, or one on the right, one on the left, but it just balances out.
Yeah, exactly. And we need to remember that even if we've done that work and we've increased our vibration, we can still lower our vibration for certain people. All the vibration increase is our capacity to hold that much vibration. I mean, our vibration does this all day, every day. A negative thought brings it down by 12. A positive thought brings it up by 10. So we go up and down and up and down and up and down, right? So change is inevitable.
Yeah, someone had to go.
Gleneve, so thanks for joining us, Gleneve. Don't be afraid to meditate. Reach out if you have concerns, okay?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's really a big part of the journey, is accepting where you are and allowing yourself to change and learn. And that's how we manifest, right? Because in order to change and learn, we have to imagine something different.
Absolutely. And like I said, the only constant in the universe is change.
Mm-hmm.
We're always moving. We're always changing. We're growing. We're not the same. We're not the same person that was there at the age of 5 or 10 or 15. Okay, I'm still stuck at 21, but yeah. You get
You keep your playfulness from there, but you do have other things that have changed.
My daughter is 21.
Thank you.
So, yes. So basically, all that to say is that we need to clear and clean our energy field in order to be able to grow. Because that's at the end of the day, it's growing. It's like putting a plant in the soil where it has weed all around it. And all the weed is going to do is just choke it to death. So what we usually do in a garden, and for those who love gardening, is we pull all the weed out, dig through the soil, air it out, make sure it gets enough sunlight, a bit more water, and so on and so forth, and aerate it so that there's movement for the roots of the plant to grow. And it's just like us.
Mm-hmm.
If we're choking with all these things, what would happen is that we can't move anymore. We get crippled. So we need to aerate it, water it, move it in the sun a bit, not to dry it, but to to energize it, and we can take it into another level, which is a manifestation level.
Right.
Again, everything is energy, and everything is energy at a different frequency. There's nothing that is good or bad. It is what it is.
Yeah, it is frequency.
And someone mentioned something about religion, that forgiveness, and I know I sorry, I was choking at that point in time. I read it, but I survived my choking part. So that's for Glenn. Yeah, she said I don't want to bring religion into it. Jesus equal forgiveness. Forgiveness, it's very important. It is us. It's forgiving ourselves for taking whatever came towards us in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, one of my things that helped me out is that to put myself in the other person's shoes and understand them. Because once you're there, that's it. Everything falls into pieces. There's nothing to be upset of.
Yeah.
Because the other is in the same situation that you are. And you realize there's no other, but you're both one in the same situation, fighting yourself over nothing.
Yeah.
And
we are all one. We
Pardon?
are all one, and we are connected.
Yes.
So, absolutely. So manifesting.
Yes.
What do you think?
What do I think? I think I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you my story. Okay. Sorry. I've been jumping all over the place trying to choke on tea and so on. But didn't work. In 1987, 88, I think around that time, yes, 87, 88. I was in Lebanon. Those were, that's why I'm 21 years old. Those were, and and we didn't have electricity. So I would put a candle at night and read a little book and then close the book and turn off the candle. And I would dream of leaving the country. And I'm talking about times where we had nothing. And when I mean nothing, it means like nothing. And I would dream about leaving the country. And we didn't have all these things back then in the 80s. We didn't have internet. We didn't have books about it. We had nothing. And it just happened with me. And I noticed, well, I actually realized what happened years after that when I started on my spiritual journey, is that I started to imagine me living in North America. I couldn't figure out where it's going to be, but it has to be here. And I would have this whole scenario, even a house, even a car, even a job, the works. It's all of it. And then slowly it started to enhance and get stronger and stronger. And while that is happening, see, now I'm imagining things and it started to wanted to come out and manifest. Someone from I used to volunteer at the Red Cross because I didn't want to be involved in the war. So one of the guys at the Red Cross comes and sees me. He goes, "Hey, by the way, there's someone going to Cyprus. Do you need something?" And I go, "Oh, you know what? Could you ask them to get me an application from the Canadian embassy since they're going there? I'll try to apply." But in my head, it's like, they're not going to take me. But although I'm saying those words, at night I'm solidifying the idea that I'm moving into North America, and here it is. I have books that I could have wrote about my life in North America that I projected.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought me the application. I filled it out, put it on the side. We don't even have mail to send it to Cyprus. So I had to wait for somebody else to travel. And it happened that somebody else from the Red Cross was traveling. I gave them the application, and they went and deposited at the embassy. And 6 months later, I can't remember how I got the thing, if it was a letter or a call. Even telephones we didn't have at that time, because
we had telegrams.
Yeah, that's true. It used to come into little thing with dots in it. So anyways, they said, "Come to Cyprus for an interview." I go, "What?" And that was in 98, no, 99, no, 1989. I got the call to go to Cyprus, and I go, I don't know. And then we were under siege, and more war happened, and then I was out of the house for a while, came back, and I said, "That's it. I'm going to Cyprus. I don't care." And plus, at that time, inflation was like jumping at 100% every day. That your salary at the beginning, my salary was at the beginning of the month $500. At the end of the month was $300. The month after was $200. And it will cost more to get to work than to get money from work. So they decided to give us a bonus of $500. And that bonus got me a plane ticket to Cyprus for the interview. Imagine. I got there. I got to the hotel, and the hotel was filled with Lebanese, and we were talking at night, and they said, "Oh my God, they canceled everything. They're not taking anyone. Run for your life. Basically, don't bother." I go, "What are you talking about? I came here to get my visa. There's no way I'm not leaving without it." And the next day, I go into the embassy, have my interview. I got accepted. I did my medical like 2 blocks away from the embassy.
Mhm.
Within 6 months, I got my visa, and I had to leave before 1 year. And I was here in Canada in 1991. It was all about manifestation through imagination.
Very cool. Yeah.
It is very, very powerful. And that's out of my own experience, actually. And I like to use that because it shows you can go into despair in times of during hard times, or you can spin everything and put yourself in the future and create this beautiful future. It might not happen tomorrow, but you're pushing and you're pouring all the energy for the creation to happen, and it will happen eventually. Pure creation, absolutely, absolutely. And
Great
someone,
story.
I used to dream flying like a bird when I was a teenager, but then it stopped.
Yeah,
But well, maybe that dreaming wanted to be a pilot or
maybe
sit on a plane all the time,
freedom. He wanted some freedom.
or
Sometimes
freedom.
marathons are about freedom or getting a bird's eye view, that you needed some insight into something. So when we, like a hawk is very much about getting that bird's eye view. Actually, a book about that I have around about animals is this one here, Stephen Farber, a spirit animal book. So if you look that up, there'll be something in the animals about a bird. Or if you look up dream books, there's all sorts of dream books for that kind of thing. Or you can just, yes, wanted freedom. Yeah, that's what I was getting for you actually. Was that you wanted freedom. We're getting it. So some of you are on other platforms, but there's a Facebook user who wanted freedom. That's where this is coming from, is the comments from some of the other platforms. So yes. So thank you for that confirmation. That's what I was getting for you, was the freedom. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So the thing that gets in our way is actually our limiting beliefs. And our limiting beliefs are what sits in our field. So those are some of the things that we have to clear out of our field in order for us to manifest. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
It's a beautiful
does
journey.
anyone have any more questions for us? So I guess this will, there's nobody with questions. I guess we'll conclude tonight's episode, Open Mic Imagination, till next Thursday. Next Thursday, since it's the last episode of Open Mic, well, this series is the last episode of this series, and I find that people actually enjoyed it a lot. So we will create definitely a new set of series for us after we finish this one, and I will announce it on Facebook and on YouTube the same way we did with this one. Thank you, guys. And quick recap is that please, whatever you do, the first thing you have to do is forgive yourself. Forgive, forgive, forgive. Start with you, and it shines through you to others. Then forgiveness will start radiating across your community. It is very important. You know, what's his name? Gandhi didn't win a war by carrying a gun. He won a war by being peaceful. And
Love is the only way to fight
yeah,
hate.
absolutely. And he won the war against one of the biggest empires at that time
Mm-hmm.
without having to lift a finger. So, on that note, keep cleaning your. No, we're holding like that. Others around us.
Yes, love and light, Tanis and Ramsey. We're
Love
holding
and light.
and leaving space for others around us. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I encourage you all, I invite you all to just send love out into the world with your imagination. Okay. And we'll manifest a beautiful future.
On that note, we say thank you. Have a nice evening. and we'll see you next week. Thank you.